Hello everyone, CS here, and in front of me is the standard Etho hopper collect design. Everyone's probably familiar with it, but it's been around for so long, I wanted to try and see if I could make it any better. So we're probably familiar with the design. We have items flowing between two hoppers. When one loses all of the items, the comparator will depower, so the piston can retract, allowing for the other one to extend, and we get a T flip-flop motion here in the back. So my first idea was to try and remove the pistons and use a dropper RS NOR latch, and that's what we've got right here. So once all the items are drained, a comparator will flash the powered rail here for the observer to send a signal for the droppers to alternate the item between them, and so we do get the item or the hopper clock design, but with only a single click instead of a loud from the piston. Yes, that's what pistons sound like. Now, I tried to make that a little bit more compact by removing the powered rail, but sadly because of how weird droppers like to be activated, I had to add a line of powered dust across the top, but we still get that hopper clock method with a RS Norlatch design at the back. So I wanted to try and make that into a more compact design again, and I decided to have a block, comparator, observer to dropper, and then that gets read again with a comparator and some dust. And so this one is slightly neater looking than the other two, and we still get that same design function with the 4 items moving back and forth, because that's all I put in, and 1 item moving back and forth in the droppers here. So then I decided, well, why am I using an RS NOR latch? I could just use a T flip-flop, because that's pretty much what the original design there is. And so that's what I've done here, using a dispenser and powdered snow. This is kind of a messy design, but basically the output from this hopper goes to that torch there, and this output goes to this torch here, and when one of them completely runs out of items, one of the torches will flash on to briefly power this dispenser so that we can change the state, and that will either lock or unlock this torch while doing the inverse for this block here. So you can see the action going on right here. The torch will power while this is unpowered, so we get the inverse locking effect. And then I decided to clean that up a little bit, and we just have comparators to block, to torch, to either dispenser or block, so that this side can power the dispenser still, and then we just run it straight back. And yeah, sure, I'll go ahead and demonstrate that it's working. Alright, so then I still wasn't quite satisfied even having a single click, and that's when I decided to go with a completely silent design. Now I used the absolutely weird and outdated T flip-flop using repeaters, and when this torch is powered, it will lock this one. So while we are between states, the 2 torches are on, and same thing with that one. As soon as one loses all the items, it will pulse so that this torch can turn off to unlock the system here. There's the clock relay, and this is pretty much the only remaining repeater T flip-flop after the 1.5 change of everything. And then I just brought it around to the front like before with this one right here and that one over there, so that this one is locking while this one's unlocked and vice versa. Now, then I finally decided to actually look on YouTube for other people's designs, and the first one that I found was Titi Sir Minecraft, and I don't know if he's the original creator, but he had the most views for this design that I could find. We have a pretty much T-flip, or a RS NOR latch down here with the hoppers, and this is our counting hopper up here, so we have currently 8 items up there, and I think it needs at least 8 to function. So we see that once the items move back and forth, we'll change our output down here, and then the signal from this hopper will travel through to power or depower the torch respectively. Well, I figured if I could make a silent and compact design like this one, maybe I can make a larger design that would last for a longer period of time. And so we have Sethblings design here, where there are 4 hoppers pointing into each other, and when one hopper has items, it will lock the one next to it until it's completely out of items. And so we'll see here that currently this hopper has 64 items, and they're being drained to this one. And once this one has completely run out of items, then this comparator will unlock this hopper so that we can move the cycle around continually. Alright, so we just saw that that one got depowered, and now this one is draining items into this one. So it's just this cyclic motion, and then I just have a lever here to power this one continually so that it can stop the cycle. And you can take an output from anywhere on here, and you could probably even overfill one of the hoppers so that you get larger than Okay, I'm back. So as I was saying, I wanted to make it larger than the 7.5 minutes that Sethbling had made it for, and so my first thought was to use a dropper size because it has 9 slots, but because I decided to use a observer clock right here, the items are draining at dropper speed, which is twice as fast as hopper speed, so really I have half as much space here if we say it's running at hopper speed, so I only have 4.5 stacks here. So yeah, in other words, this is even worse than just a standard hopper, a standard double hopper clock. And then I can just lock it right there, so do that and move this here so it doesn't make any noise. Now, from here I decided to try and make a chest-based design so we could have a bulk amount of storage. And what I have right here is a very rudimentary prototype. Once all the items are drained out of the chest here, the comparator will turn off so that this torch can turn on, and that'll go ahead and activate this piston, and that's going to allow for this line of dust to unlock the hopper so we can start draining, so we can lock the hopper here so items will not be drained out while the chest is being refilled, and it's also going to activate this piston so it can start a observer clock. And so once we run out of items in the dropper down here, the torch that is located underneath of that piston right there will go ahead and turn on, and we'll push that block back. In other words, our T flip-flop will change state, and yeah, I'll just go ahead and show this in action. So items are draining, and once we reach all the way, once we run out of items completely, we'll see the change. Alright, and now items are moving out of the dropper back into the chest here, and there will always be one item stuck into the hopper here, so keep that in mind for whatever calculations you might be using. And so, yeah, fairly basic. And so from here I decided, alright, since this works, I'll go ahead and scale it up. And so I have a double chest here filled with items, and I was actually running it a little bit earlier, so go ahead and move the items back into the top. But basically, because we have one singular pinch point, we can throw all of the items into a single hopper, and then they will make their way down to this dropper here and be stored up in this chest here. And we have to use 2 hoppers to pull out the item so that we can keep up with the dropper speed of the item elevator. Otherwise, the dropper will run out of items before the chest here has completely been drained. So, keeping that in mind, it's the exact same design right there. I just moved it up and down to account for the verticality of this. So once the items are drained out, the torch here will turn on for the piston to extend, to activate, to move this piston forward, to activate the observer clock. Yes, this looks very messy, but that's the only way I could really figure out to power all of the several droppers I got going on right here. And then the line here will deactivate so that this torch can turn off to allow items to again be stuck in the hopper there. And if I go ahead and switch to spectator, once we run out of items in the dropper here, the comparator will then power up this torch again so that this piston will extend. So this could, in theory, if we are using the full size of the chest here, will last 20.4 hours. But what we can do to actually make this better and more comparable to our time method is use a simple 1-second timer to drain items from a hopper at every second on the second, which is pretty neat because now we have a actual real-life counter. And so if we account for the 3,456 items we have going on in here, then that will mean we can have a total of 23 point something hours, 23.2 I think is what it was. Alright, that sounds all nice and good, but you also have to consider that all the items that are in here flowing through the hopper have to cycle back up. So we have to add an additional 50% because we're going twice as fast with the hoppers because we have droppers. So that would give us a total of 23 times 1.5 is, pull up the calculator to 1.5, 34.5 hours, which is well over a day and a half, or close to a day and a half. But we can make this even bigger if we use 2 double chests, because now we can have an entire second double chest plus the 2 hoppers here. And if we count for all of this, then that comes to like, I think it ended up being 125 hours, 125.8 hours, which is just over 5 real-life days of counting. Dang, OBS keeps crashing on me. So, as I was saying, we have a 5-day counter here, and that will allow us to keep track of really lengthy period of time, and we could again move these one after another. So once this is finished one entire cycle, we could have this go into another one, and that would just exponentially increase the amount of time that these hopper counterclocks could keep track of. Well, that's all I have for today, and thanks for watching. Goodbye. So I kind of realized after the fact that I didn't show this one in action, so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and run a tick warp as this is running. So first I'll turn this off and we can see things go. So the piston down here has retracted because we now have items in the dropper here, and now I can do a tick warp for 27,000, and that should drain all of the items out of here. I'll probably speed this up in post, so I'll be right back. Alright, so we're almost drained of all the items, and so, like I said before, what we'll see is this torch will activate so that we can start the T flip-flop down here, so that the observer clock will start. Meanwhile, the comparator, or the signal, will move along to lock the hopper here, and no items will be drained out while we are refilling the chest. So, yeah, time to do another tick warp, and we can see everything get refilled. Alright, so we'll see that the dropper here is about to run out of items, and once it does, the torch underneath of here will power so that the T flip-flop can activate. We'll unlock the dropper line, and the observer clock will also stop. So now we just have to wait for this to finish draining. So yeah, we saw the piston there move, and now we are draining the items back out of here again. But yeah, that's all something to think about. Anyway, because we just have one hopper here, this is all considered a hopper clock, and that's all I have for today, so thanks for watching. Goodbye.